This is going to be instructing you on what kind of things you need to think about when you're considering a change in domain. Now, there may be many reasons why you want to change your Google Workspace account domain name, because the domain name is really the root, it's the base of the account. And what many business owners do is when they start a new business, whether it's a side hustle or a new brand, they end up starting a new Google Workspace account, which is not the right thing to do. Gone are the days where one Google account was locked to one domain. Now that we actually have the business plans, we have the ability to change domains. But it's not just a matter of clicking the buttons and actually following a wizard, because there are some things that can go wrong if you attempt to change the domain yourself. Now, the worst case scenario is that you lose emails, potentially lose data, and we've seen people losing access to their Google sites where they've stored all of their how-tos and systems and processes. And the other thing that's also the worst case scenario is that your emails actually aren't delivered, and that means your customers can't email you, and we definitely don't want that embarrassment, nor do we want to miss out on the business by not being able to actually properly receive emails. So let me take you through how we're going to think about changing our domains, and then I'll share with you all of the resources that you need if you're interested in doing it yourself. Now, when we're switching between different domain names inside of G Suite, there's a pretty simple process. Step one is we're going to add the additional domain as an add-on domain. And if you've watched our previous videos, you would know that you just go to the Google admin, and inside the Google admin, you go ahead and switch, or you add, sorry, a new add-on domain. And once we've added a new add-on domain, you'll see that we actually have different options here. We can activate domains as domain aliases, or if I add an add-on domain, I will have a button appear which allows me to change this domain to a primary domain. But I don't want you to do that just yet, because there's a process to go through of actually deciding how, when, and why you would change to a new domain. Now, one of the most important things is that when a business is going through a rebrand, or when a business has maybe, spun up a side business, and, we covered some of the reasons why you might use an add-on versus an alias domain in the previous video. But when you're spinning up a new business, there's always this question of, should I have two accounts together, or should I have two Google Workspace accounts completely separate? And if you have two Google Workspace accounts completely separate, it has some advantages. There's a Chinese wall between the two accounts, which means that if you have different shareholders or different business partners in the second brand or the second business, then they are going to be kept nice and completely separate. Because accounts that share the same Workspace account, if you have multiple domains in one account, basically they're able to share resources between each other pretty easily. And so if you don't necessarily want business partners in one business being able to poke around in everything you've got going in the other business, then you probably want to keep the two accounts separate. But there is one big advantage in having both domains under one account, and that is that you can actually have shared staff or shared resources working across those domains. It means that you can have one bucket of email with multiple domains funneling in and multiple email addresses going out as well, and you may be able to save quite a lot on costs for the multiple brands across your group, across your different businesses. Because if you're not paying for the extra mailboxes, you're saving, probably 20 bucks a month per person. So for businesses that have a lot of staff that are working across multiple brands, or let's call them shared roles, then that may be advantageous to keep the two together. Okay, so what happens in the scenario where you've started with one and you then want to switch to the other? Well, some of the things that can go wrong is if you don't have your DNS configured correctly and you want to cut over and switch to the new domain, then you can experience downtime on your emails, which means that people are going to get bounce backs from your emails, and your customers are not going to be seeing your emails come through. Now, the challenge with that is obviously it looks bad for business, but you might also miss out on business as well. To make sure that you have your DNS all configured correctly, you can actually go to the DNS checker, and for that, you just head along to www.itgenius.com/DNS. And this is a Google tool which actually helps you to check your DNS and confirm that everything is compliant. So you drop in your domain name and you run a search there. And what that's going to do is actually show exactly what's going on with your domain name. It's going to check DKIM, it's going to check SPF, it's going to check, I don't think it checks DMARC, but it checks just about everything with your DNS. And if you're interested in a more in-depth video on making sure that your DNS is set up correctly, watch our video on our YouTube channel, which I'll post a link to up in the corner. Now, you can see here that we have a problem with our DNS records here in that one of the Infusionsoft SPF records has actually been depreciated. And so if you're seeing those kind of errors when you run this report, then it would make sense for an IT professional to jump in and fix your DNS records, which you can jump on the link below, chat to our team, and we'll give you some options to help out with that if you find that you need some help. So if you don't configure your DNS correctly, by the time you change the primary domain, your emails are going to go nowhere. That's the absolute must that you must make sure you get correct. The next one is when you go to switch your primary domain inside your G Suite or Google Workspace account, what that primary domain will do is change the alias of chat, change the alias of documents, and change the alias of basically every user in your account. Now, that's fine until you go to sign back in to eBay or sign back into something else that uses your Google account to log in, like maybe asana.com, and you find that because your Google email address has changed, all of a sudden your accounts no longer work. And so there is a process of needing to go to each one of those websites, and typically the process is to do a password reset. You reset the password, then you log back into your account using the old alias, and then with the old alias, you reattach your Google account or you change the registered email address over to the new account. But not all vendors will work that easily, and some will actually break things. Sometimes if you're using an app like Zapier to connect different cloud applications together and move data between cloud apps, you can actually have some of those connections break because you've changed the email address. If you're using a mobile phone and you're synchronizing your data to your mobile phone, then you may also find that the data no longer synchronizes. Using something like WhatsApp backup into your Google Drive may no longer work on an Android phone because you've changed the primary email account. Now, this is going to happen across all of your staff, so you need to be prepared and educate your team on what might happen when you actually make that switch. So if you're interested in changing your primary domain name, the first thing you want to get done is make sure the DNS is correct. Number two, you want to make sure that the users are ready and prepared to have to re-log into each website that they've connected their former Google account to. The old email address still works and it still gets delivered as long as you don't change any of your DNS settings, but the actual link can become broken between the two accounts. Now, the third thing you need to make sure you do is actually copy your Google site over to the new domain. And there's a little bit of a tricky process to that. You need to go into your Google site while you're still logged in as the old domain and share it to the new domain, and then actually make a copy of the Google site from the old domain over to the new domain. If you're interested in a video on how to get that done, you can join up to our concierge program, and we have a video inside our Google Classroom to show you how to copy Google sites when you're preparing to change domain names to a different domain on your Google Workspace account. So I've covered off the methodology. If you're interested in getting it done, I would highly recommend you look at the Google Administration Guide for domains before you attempt any of this. And we have other resources on our channel, as well as videos inside our Google Classroom as well. So we've covered off everything you need to know about how to change your primary domain. Hopefully that wasn't too technical for you guys. I know this stuff gets a bit heavy, but I just want to make sure that you guys kind of get thinking about how you can get your domains configured correctly, because we all want to save money by not having to have more Google licenses than we need. When it was $5 a user in the old days, everything was good, but now it's nearly $20 a user if you're on the business plan. The cost is quite significantly more, and you want to make sure that you're being as savvy as possible with how it's set up, which I certainly understand myself.